Today is January 31st, 2022, and this is part 2 of my Where Did All This Stuff Come From video. And part 1 ended up with the clamshell mutoscope, and I tried making a video earlier, and of course, the mutoscope is vertical, so I held the camera vertical and talked for like 10-15 minutes, and then I held the camera horizontal and talked the rest of the time, and of course everything turned out sideways. So this time I've got everything on a pole, and everything's horizontal, so hopefully the film will be okay. I'm not exactly Cecil B. DeMille, that's for sure. And but anyway, the mutoscope was bought at the same time that I got the area digger, and the area digger was bought after I had spent all my money on the mutoscope, but I had brought a few things to trade with me. And in the parking lot was a guy sitting with his legs dangling off the back of a truck with this next to him. And I asked him if he ever did any trading, and he said, sure. And he says, what do you have? So I had a little Busy Bee phonograph and a little chrome cash register with a marble top and a little thing that flipped dice. And all the stuff I had, if I was to retail it, I would have asked $1,200 total, and he had $1,200 on this. So he saw everything, and he said, sure, let's do it. So I got to come home in one trip with 2 things off my wish list that I've always wanted. And the area digger is something that when I was a little kid, my dad would take me to the carnival, and he would play these for hours, and he was always really good at winning stuff. And these are kind of rigged, so winning stuff on these is pretty good skill. So anyway, the next thing I want to talk about is the Victors 1 through 6 that's on this level of shelves. And I have them all in a row here. And I now have my camera on a pole, so I would probably be filming at the height of a normal person. So we'll see how this turns out. So anyway, the Victor 1 was a response to my ad that I ran in the Farmer's Forum every week that said, $1,000 minimum paid for a phonographs I need most for my collection. And this was a phonograph that the guy lived in on a ranch just outside of Horace, which is just outside of Fargo, North Dakota, and it had been in his family for years, and the horn was kind of more oval shaped on the end and had a big crack in it. Then there was a chunk of wood missing on the bottom of the cabinet. But it's such a rare thing to see a wood horn come along with the Victor 1, because normally if you could afford a wood horn, you'd have it on a more expensive phonograph. So I was just thrilled to get this, and I sent it off to Don Gaffel in Milan, Ohio, and he did a masterful job restoring it, kept the original patina and everything, and I'm just thrilled with it. And as I recall, I gave the rancher about $350 worth of custom framing of a wildlife print or 2, and the rest in cash. And then Don Gaffel, I had another Victor 1 that needed work, and I traded that and some cash for his work, and I've just been thrilled with that, adding that Victor 1 to the collection. And then the next phonograph over here is a Victor 2, and this is actually the first real outside horn phonograph I ever bought. For years, well, maybe 2 years, at an auction I found a metal Victor horn, and I swore someday I was going to find a phonograph to hang on it. And one day I'm at the Robert Street Antique Mall loading stuff into my booth and talking to a friend of mine, and customers overhearing this conversation, and they said, I know this guy with a whole bunch of phonographs. His name is Albert D. Smith in Minneota, Minnesota. So I got his name and grabbed my horn and went down to Minneota, and there, sure enough, he had a ton of phonographs, but this is his most expensive one. But it started with its life with this red metal horn that's over here. And of course the red metal is beautiful too, but my goal was to try and get the Victors 1 through 6 with original wood horns. I'm not sure exactly how well this shows up with the lights behind it. Let me turn my lights on here. Whoop, wrong one. There we go. By the way, these are speaker light bulbs, and I've got 7 of them in the room, and they make a wonderful surround sound thing. There we go. But it's a real pretty red horn, and that was on that machine, and he sold it to me for $750. And that was my first real phonograph with a horn. And of course the black horn I had wasn't nearly as nice as the red horn, but anyway, that one fit my goal of having that, finding a phonograph with a horn. And I was pretty sure Lois was not going to be too thrilled with me spending all that money, so I paid a third in cash, a third in credit card check, and a third in framer check. And of course, eventually, not too long after, she found out what I had done. But for a long time, I thought this was a Victor 3, because I assumed that all the Victors with the corner columns were 3s, and the 1 and 2 were smooth. With no corner columns like you see on the one there. So I thought they just had the wrong plate on it, and it took me quite a while to discover that sure enough that is a real Victor 3, I mean a real Victor 2 and not a 3. And so I was thrilled to get that one, and the horn came from a friend of mine who knew I was trying to get the 1 through 6 all with original wood horns. And I think I paid $750 for that one, if I'm not mistaken. And then the next one here is a Victor 3. This was also in response to that farm ad that I had about $1,000 minimum paid. And it was a farm couple that answered. And it was just really fun talking to them. They had said they had turkeys and stuff growing up, and that they had a number of phonographs, and they used to just throw the horns on the ground and let the turkeys and birds that they had use them for nesting. And I was just horrified to think that someone would think so little of this, that they would be used as a nest for some turkeys or something, and or some other kind of birds. And I just was so thankful to get this. It was, you know, all together, been in their family for years, and the whole thing together, they gave it to me for $1,000, and I was just thrilled to get it for that. Now, as long as I'm going along the line of shelves, this next phonograph, and here's where this pole is going to be handy, this next phonograph that's up a little bit, that is a rigid arm Victor M. And those are kind of a transitional machine between the front mount, which is over here on the other side of the sign. That's Victor P. And then the regular tapered tone arm, which the 1 through 6 is. So this rigid tone arm is quite a hard to find thing. And there was a farm auction with a number of phonographs, this being one. And not too long before that auction, there was a record of one of these rare rigid arm machines selling for $6,300 out east. So I came with the idea of coming home with that thing. And it was kind of funny because here were all these flat wagons all in a row, and they were selling stuff $5 here, $2 there, box of stuff for $1, and then they came to this. This was the first phonograph that came up, and me and another guy just kept bidding and bidding, and the people thought we were crazy, and I ended up being winning bidder of this thing at $1,800, but I was just thrilled to get it. And the funny thing was, the whole audience just gasped. They thought, this is nuts, somebody paying that kind of money for that stupid phonograph. And here, I was just thrilled to get it for that. And let's see, the next thing we have here that's kind of on this level up, on these shelves, is this cool sign that I've always loved. Let's see, there it is. And it says music for your entertainment, and has the Art Nouveau look of the girls dancing, and I just love this. And this was bought at a Moorhead auction. There was a place called Bud's Roller Rink that was around forever, and I used to go there when I was a kid, and it closed down, and many years later he had a big auction, and this is one of the things that he had in the auction. And this is a thing too that I decided I am not coming home without that. And I was just thrilled because I was winning bidder on it for $100. And I just couldn't believe my luck to get that beautiful thing for $100. And I always assumed it was a sign that came out of like a record store or something like that. And a few years after I had it, I was watching the movie Cannery Row with Nick Nolte and Deborah Winger, and here it was, the top of a jukebox, and I just couldn't believe that was, from the top of a jukebox. But anyway, the guy that had all the stuff, his name was Bud, and I met him and we talked for a while, and I told him that I used to go out to the roller rink all the time, but I said one of the memorable times was I was kicked out of there. And he says, what do you mean you were kicked out of there? And I said, well, the word that the waitress used was I was kicked out of there because my girlfriend and I, the word she used, we were kicked out because of heavy petting. That's what she called it when we were kind of making out in one of the booths. And so he thought that was so funny that he brought his wife over and had me tell the story of being kicked out of Bud's roller rink for heavy petting. And I ended up buying some old roller skates as kind of a memento of the place too. The other thing I got at the roller rink is this this copper thing. I like unusual copper stuff. And that's a trolley car counter, and was happy to get that too. And let's see, the next one up on our line here is a Victor IV, and the horn was a response to an auction I saw that was in Brainerd, which is quite a ways away, and it was in around November, or no, it wasn't an auction, it was a rummage sale, and the rummage sale just said wood horn. And I thought, wow, could that really be a wood horn from a phonograph? Because everything else didn't seem very, good antique-wise. So I called up, and here they described this mahogany horn. And I said, well, how much do you want for it? And they said $50. And I couldn't believe it. So my wife and I jumped in our old 84 Suburban, and my wife got a speeding ticket, and going 81 in a 55, I think it was, and we drove through some really bad winter weather, but I was thrilled to take that home with me. And I've always thought of smooth mahogany horns belonging on a Victor IV. So I put an ad in the Phonograph Society newsletter saying wanted Victor IV. And I had this guy in Oregon call me up, and he says, I have a nice Victor IV, and he said, I'd give it to you for $800 without the horn. And I said, great, let's do it. And so we were talking a little bit, and I told him I had a smooth mahogany wood horn to match up with that. And he said, well, that's worth a lot of money. He said, I'm not going to sell you that for only $800 then. He says, I'm going to want $1,200 if you want this phonograph, because when you put that wood horn on there, it's going to be quite a valuable thing. And I thought, well, what difference should that make, what horn I put on it, as to what price you want? And I just told him, this is ridiculous, and I passed on buying it. And later on, I found it out of California. A longtime phonograph guy, Bryce Paris, had it. It was $1,000, so that put the two together, and that's a real great deal to have a wood horn Victor 4 for a total of $1,050. And let's see, the next phonograph up here is a Victor 5, and this Victor 5 was the case without the horn. The guy had bought it at a rummage sale for $25, and he contacted a friend of mine that's a phonograph guy, and my friend knew that I was really hot after trying to get the 1 through 6 phonographs, so he steered them to me. But the guy knew what this thing was worth, and so I ended up giving the guy that bought this at the rummage sale for $25. I gave him $750 cash, and then a $250 Art Nouveau backlit sculpture for the Victor 5 without the horn. So then the next time at the Antique Phonograph Convention, I was hot on the hunt for a oak horn to match that 5, and there was a guy marching around the parking lot. You know, this is like 2 or 3 days before the Antique Phonograph show actually started, and he had this horn. He's just walking around with it, and I thought the color would just match really great, and I said, what do you want for it? And he said $1,250, and I said great, and so I bought it. And then I was broke again, and another thing I had on my list was an Edison Concert, and that's this thing over here with this great big horn. And anyway, this was at the phonograph convention, and the guy had $1,850 on it, you know, without the horn. And so I made note of the guy's name and phone number, and because I was broke by then, and came home, and a few months later had sold some stuff and saved up enough that I had that concert phonograph shipped back. And now the Victor 6, the kind of holy grail of these Victors here, that's on the end, is quite a interesting turn of events. The guy that I bought this Victor 5 from, that he only paid $25, and I gave him all, you know, $750 and the sculpture. We got to be good friends, and we hung out a lot and stuff. And quite some time after I bought the 5, he told me about a great aunt who was having a big auction on the farm, and that she was selling a bunch of stuff, and they had some phonograph items. So he asked me if I wanted to come before the auction and see if I could find any phonograph items I like. And so I went to the pre-auction and bought a bunch of stuff. And one of the things I bought was this. And when I bought it, you know, I knew her husband, the farmer, was a machinist. And I thought, well, this is probably something he made up with putting parts from this and parts to that together. And I gave her $200 for this. Well, I come home trying to figure out what parts these are made out of. And I looked at the Antique Phonograph Compendium by Tim Fabrizio. And I keep looking earlier and earlier in the pages, and here this thing is on page 49 of the book, and it's actually a super rare phonograph. And so I thought, well, the Victor 6s at the time were usually going with the wood horn about $5,800 if they were in pretty good shape. And of course, $5,800 was more than I could afford. And so I thought, I'm going to try and trade this super rare, there's probably like 10 of these known to exist, phonograph, for this one there's, you know, way more than this super rare one. So I called up some of the who's who in the phonograph world and told them this rare machine that I had, which they call an Edison McDonald machine because it has a McDonald motor and an Edison top works. And everybody I talked to said it's a nice rare machine, but they said way more people are after that beautiful Victor 6 than there are people after that real rare Edison McDonald phonograph. They said you probably have to kick in about $1,000 or so. And so I thought, well, I'll see if anybody else is interested, and I was going to put an ad in the Phonograph Society newsletter. And so I called up Tim Fabrizio and said, I'm going to put this ad saying willing to trade this very rare Edison McDonald phonograph for a real nice Victor 6 with mahogany wood spear tip horn. And I said I wanted to reference page 49 in your book that shows a picture of this, so then I don't have to, put an ad in with the picture of the phonograph. And he said, what are you doing again? So I explained, everything again, and he says, I've been collecting forever, and he said, I've got the most beautiful Victor 6 I've ever seen that I've had in my collection a long time. And he said, I would be willing to trade you even up for that Edison McDonald phonograph. So I was just thrilled, and this machine came from Tim Fabrizio, who wrote the book on phonograph, the Complete Talking Machine Compendium. He had written some other books too. And I was just thrilled to get this, and I kind of call it jokingly my $200 Victor 6. The funny thing is that all these years later, if I was to put this up on eBay, from what I could see with comparables, I would guess this would probably sell about 7,000 or so. And the Victor 6s, I'm going to guess this one would probably now sell between about 3,400 and about, I would guess maybe it could go as much as 5,000, but usually you don't see Victor 6s at 5,800 anymore. So that is the row of the Victor 6s, or the Victors 1 through 6. And I'll pause this now. Well, it looks like I'm a little over 20 minutes, so I think it's time to call this part 2 of where all this stuff came from. So I'm going to shut this off, and I might do a part 3 later on.